Who are the real Americans? Have you ever stopped to think about that question? It is a story woven from many different threads, from many different places, from many different peoples. To understand who we are today, we must look back. Let us explore the many chapters of this nation's story with open minds and open hearts. We will look at the first inhabitants, the arrivals from distant shores, and the ways they came together. Think of America as a very old house. Before the famous names arrived, this house was already lived in. Every person who has come since is a new guest, a new resident who has added a room, painted a wall, or planted a garden. This story belongs to all of us, and it begins long before 1492. Let us begin with the first peoples of this land. Long before the year 1492, this land was already home to millions of people. We call them Native Americans or indigenous peoples. They were not one single group. They were hundreds of distinct nations, each with its own language and culture. They built great cities, created complex societies, and lived in harmony with the world around them for thousands of years. They were hunters, farmers, artists, and astronomers. Their connection to the land was spiritual. They saw themselves as caretakers, not owners. They passed down their histories through stories, songs, and ceremonies. These were the first Americans. Their legacy is the very foundation upon which everything else has been built. Their footprints are the oldest ones on this soil. When we ask who the real Americans are, we must always start here. Their story is not a closed chapter, it is living and powerful today. Then, one day, everything began to change. In the year 1492, Christopher Columbus, sailing for Spain, arrived in the Caribbean. He was not the first European to reach these lands, but his voyages began a new era. They came from Spain, Portugal, France, England, and the Netherlands for riches, religion, and new starts. They brought languages, religions, technologies, and ideas about law and government. Small coastal colonies grew into towns and then countries, like a new family moving into an old house. At first a few rooms, then rearranging furniture, then building additions. Cultures began to mix, often in difficult, painful ways. Newcomers saw land ownership differently. Private property versus communal stewardship. As settlers moved inland, they claimed more territory and set the stage for major changes. The arrival of Europeans began a wave of immigration and profound transformations. But another painful chapter was unfolding at the same time. At the same time that Europeans were arriving by choice, another group was brought here against their will. This is a very difficult but essential part of our story. Millions were captured across West and Central Africa and forced onto crowded ships, a brutal journey called the Middle Passage. Many did not survive the trip. Those who did survive were sold at auctions, separated from their families, and forced to work without pay. They worked on plantations growing tobacco, cotton, and sugar under brutal conditions. This system treated people as property, a terrible contradiction in a land where some sought freedom for themselves. It became a cornerstone of the economy in many parts of colonial America. Despite unimaginable cruelty, enslaved Africans and their descendants showed incredible strength and resilience. They preserved culture, music, food, and stories, creating powerful new forms of expression. From this pain and struggle, things of great beauty were born: spiritual songs, soul food, and music that shaped America. Their forced labor built much of the early nation's wealth, and their struggle for freedom pushed America toward its ideals. This painful chapter led to the Civil War and eventual changes that redefined the nation. African Americans are not just part of the American story, they are central to it. The meeting of three groups, Native Americans, Europeans, and Africans, forever changed the land and its people. For Native Americans, the arrival of Europeans was, honestly, a catastrophe. New diseases like smallpox and measles swept through communities with devastating impact. This invisible invasion weakened nations and made resistance harder. Beyond disease, settlers pushed westward, demanding more territory and breaking treaties. Tragic events like the Trail of Tears remind us of the human cost. For European colonists, life was full of challenges too. Harsh winters and new crops to learn. They created societies based on their laws, languages, and customs. The new America was full of contradictions. Liberty for some, suffering for others. All these experiences are woven into the fabric of the nation. As centuries passed, more waves of people arrived, shaping what would become a nation of immigrants. Next, how those waves created the country we know today. So, when we look at the people who make up America today, what do we see? We see a nation shaped layer by people who came from somewhere else. After 1776, doors remained open. In the 1800s, millions arrived from Ireland, Germany, China, and more. They settled in cities, worked in factories, and helped build America's industrial power. In the last 50 years, immigrants have come from Mexico, Central and South America, Korea, Vietnam, India, the Philippines, and many African countries. Each group brings dreams, traditions, and energy. Think of America like a giant quilt. The first patch, Native Americans. Then England, Spain, France, and a large somber patch for the forced journey from Africa. Food, music, holidays, our streets show how cultures blend. A trip to any American city proves this. Tacos, pasta, pho, curry, all on the same block. Immigrants start businesses, raise families, and contribute to communities. Our national quilt gets bigger and more beautiful with every new patch that is added. It is easy to think of Native Americans, Europeans, Africans, and later immigrants as separate stories. But their histories are deeply intertwined. You cannot tell one without the others. Their lives bumped up against each other, sometimes in friendship, sometimes in conflict. Through it all, the threads of their stories wove together into a single complex tapestry. Imagine making a soup. Native Americans provided the pot and water. Europeans added vegetables. Africans added spices. No single ingredient tells the whole story. The unique flavor comes from how they blend together. Jazz grew from African rhythms, European harmonies, and Caribbean influences, a truly American art form. We see these connections in language, food, music, and even our DNA. Our shared history includes moments of pride and moments of shame. And it all belongs to us together. Recognizing that makes the path forward clearer. The United States today is one of the most diverse countries on earth. People of all colors, speaking all languages, practicing many faiths. Millions identify as multiracial. And that diversity is one of America's greatest strengths. Think of a toolbox. More tools means more ways to solve problems. This diversity fuels innovation, creativity, and resilience. But it also requires patience, understanding, and respect. It means listening to each other's stories and celebrating uniqueness while finding common ground. A pluribus. Unum. Out of many, one. The great American experiment. Can we forge a single nation from many peoples? The story of immigration is not just in our past. It is happening right now. We started with a simple question. Who are the real Americans? After our journey, there is no single answer. Real Americans include descendants of the indigenous peoples, Europeans, Africans, and every immigrant who stepped ashore. To be an American is not about skin color, religion, or birthplace. It is about embracing ideals like liberty, equality, and the pursuit of happiness. It is about being judged by the content of your character and joining a conversation about who we want to be. Now that we know our story is shared, woven from many threads, how does that change how we see each other? The answer lies not in the past, but in the choices we make today. In how we treat our neighbors and the future we build together. What will your verse be?